An explosion rocks a small Ohio town, smoke billowing into the air and uh, chemicals billowing into the air and a smoke plume rising into the clouds, ominously marking one of the worst derailments in North American railroading history. But what caused this tragedy? What's to blame? Today, we will be talking about that. Today's topic is precision scheduled railroading, and we will be overviewing what precision scheduled railroading is, what it aimed to do, the negative effects of PSR, and how we can eliminate or revise it to benefit the United States railroad network. Let's talk about the origins of PSR. It was implemented by one man by the name of Hunter E. Harrison, CEO of the now defunct Illinois Central Railroad in 1993. PSR originally had a main central goal, and that was to get freight cars to their destinations using a point-to-point basis network. He aimed to get cars to shippers faster so that companies would be more satisfied with their work and people would want to use railroads instead of air or truck to get their cargo. And for a short while, this did work. Customer needs were being met, and corporations and companies were satisfied. In time, this would change. This isn't the only negative effect of PSR, though. Does the name East Palestine, Ohio sound familiar? If it does, it's for a reason. On February 3rd, 2022, Norfolk Southern Train 32N, which consisted of two ET44C4 locomotives and an SD70 ACE, along with 149 cars, some of which had hazardous material, derailed in the small town of East Palestine, Ohio. This caused the evacuation of the town as fires arose and authorities rushed in to control the blaze. This proved to be one of, if not the most disasterful derailment of our time. But what caused this incident? That can be traced back to something called a hotbox detector, or HBD. Hotbox detectors are an early warning technology used trackside by many railroads to detect issues with wheel bearings and equipment faults. In the case of Norfolk Southern Train 32N, 3 of these hotbox detectors were being used. However, they were not transmitting signals to the train. At the first hotbox detector, systems and temperatures were at nominal levels. At the second, they began to rise, and by the third, it was up to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, meaning a fire was present. This eventually would cause the derailment of the train in the town of East Palestine. Next, let's talk about shipper dissatisfaction even more. In a statement to the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, shippers stated that they were not satisfied with the service they were getting from their railroads. Shippers that would used to get 5 to 6 carloads a week are now only getting 2 to 3 and way less cargo. Also, let's talk about employee layoffs. Many of you might know the Railroad Union Pacific, as its headquarters is based out of Omaha, Nebraska. What you might not know is that they furloughed many of their employees just years ago and are still actually in the process of doing so. By having a smaller employee pool, wages can rise, but this negatively affects our safety as equipment is not being checked as regularly, crews are not as available for trains, and longer trains are causing issues nationwide. In a state, as this quote states, further furloughed workers means that less personnel are available to conduct safety inspections and repair damaged or outdated trains and equipment. This statement proves that our railroad network is being threatened by PSR, as less employees is creating an unsafe work environment, not only for employees, but for civilians too. One way we can counteract the negative effects of PSR is by hiring more employees again. And to look toward this, we can look at some examples on something called a Class 2 or a Class 3 railroad. Class 2 or Class 3 railroads, also called short lane railroads, are privately owned smaller companies that, instead of prioritizing profit, prioritize customer and employee well-being. These smaller railroads are usually ran by 1 or 2 people in something called in things such as small communities, small towns, counties, or even a full state, but not nationwide. As such, these railroads have a better record of delivering cargo to customers better and have a better record of treating their employees more fairly. Another graph, as shown here, shows that since the mid 20th century, the number of railroad workers has dropped by over 1 million as salaries rise. The corporations claim that they can't continue to hire on employees with their wages going up, but this is just not true. Many railroads have monopolies in certain fields, such as Norfolk Southern with iron mines based out of Virginia and coal mines in Pennsylvania. Class 3 railroads, like I stated, are carriers designated by the Surface Transportation Board that earn less than $20 million per year. These railroads, while they make less money, uh, operate more efficiently and more better. They also, unlike Class 1 railroads, are huge railroads that operate nationwide, um, do not use precision scheduled railroading and instead use things called track warrants. Track warrants allow for trains to uh, have their own warrants to and from destinations instead of um, track warrants allow for trains to have their destinations. instead of using instead of using precision scheduled railroading, many class 2 and class 3 short lines use something called track warrants. This allows for trains to get to and from their destinations without having the mass grid network that PSR utilizes. As this graph shows, um, with shifts toward air, truck, and other modes of transportation becoming more common, PSR needed a way to, or railroads needed a way to stay in the game. And the solution to that at the time was PSR. It promised to get cargo where it needed to go more faster and more efficiently, but in time it would prove to not be a success as customer needs would not be met. As the smoke settles in the small Ohio town, we learned what PSR is, what the negative effects of precision scheduled railroading are, and examples of how we can resolve this issue to benefit our nation's railroad network. Thank you for listening.